The Walt Disney Company has a huge problem on their hands. It's not one where they can't get people into the parks. Well, that is a problem, but that's not the problem we're talking about today. We're talking about a premium product that they want to sell to every single visitor of a Walt Disney park. That is, of course, Lightning Lanes. But Lightning Lane is creating a problem that is untenable for the Walt Disney Company. We're going to talk about that today on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter from That Park Place, and with me is Vash Sky. Vash, you doing all right?
I am doing just fine, Jonas. Thank you so much for asking.
And invading us by request is Mr. WDW Pro. Welcome, sir, to the channel. You doing all right today? Yes, he's
happy to be here. Happy to be here. Better than sitting in a lightning lane, I suppose.
Speaking of which, I just want to bring up this this tweet from you, sir. Can you confirm or recant this work right here? Could you read that for us?
Well, let's see. It says, remember earlier today when I showed lightning lanes for Kilimanjaro Safari winding through the park? The wait is now 15 minutes with no payment. So yeah, this is talking about back when we were in Animal Kingdom, and I don't know, maybe a rhino walked out in front of the safari ride or whatever. But yeah, the lightning lane was winding all the way through the park. Folks who had spent all that money having to wait an hour or more, and then once the rhino moved out of the way or whatever was causing the ride to be stopped, well, there was no line at all. And so essentially, these people had paid money to have a wait that they would not otherwise have. It's right. So they had negative value for their purchase.
Maybe they should rename it to Rhino Rush. I think that would be a great name for the Animal Kingdom specific version. Of course, we already have Lightning Lane, which is part of Genie Plus, which is part of the Genie program, all part of the My Disney Experience app. Let's go to another tweet here. This one from Dan, Dapper Dan _C says, Space Mountain Lightning Lane has multiple switchbacks upstairs. 0 guests have entered the standby line the whole time. Posted 140. I'm assuming that's an hour and 2 hours and 20 minutes wait. 2 people just got out of Lightning Lane and walked to standby. OMG.
Whoa.
I'm seeing a pattern here. As I often like to point out on this channel, I like to point out patterns. Here's a great video from Blog Mickey. Look at the paid Lightning Lane line for Remy's Ratatouille adventure.
Right.
Is that going past France?
Yeah,
it's going back into that area.
Even all the way out of Europe.
Oh, wow. Here's one. It's not as sped up, but here is Disney Food Blog, and they are talking about Expedition Everest here. It's a place to be this afternoon in Disney's Animal Kingdom. This shows both the standby and lightning lanes. Yeah, that is an incredible length of line. Here's another one from Disney's Food Blog. This one is It's a Small World. The current line for Small World, that is the carousel. If I'm not mistaken. Yikes.
Meanwhile, you can't pay me to get on It's a Small World.
No worries. There are other people who enjoy. They're very enthusiastic about.
Yes, they're clothing challenged, I hear.
Now, here's a beautiful one out of Galaxy's Edge. Galaxy's Edge, of course, being a rather large land that should be even larger. We're seeing a lightning lane issue, if I'm being understood here. Oh, and here is one all the way from January of last year. This one being Splash Mountain. May it rest in peace, unless Disney decides to bring it back, which is the right decision as opposed to building.
Am I gathering that there is a plethora of examples of lightning lane purchases not panning out the way that the purchaser might have thought?
Yeah, I would say that is the case. And I'm going to stop bringing evidence up here, and we're just going to have a frank discussion about this problem that the Walt Disney Company has. We've heard from multiple sources as well that Disney acknowledges that there is a lightning lane problem here. Vash, you sent me a story that I didn't get to read, but I love the headline.
Oh, yes. I sent you a podcast from the Len Testa and Jim Hill of the Touring Plans podcast, if I recall correctly, the Disney Dish specifically. And they detail that it's interesting because we see all this evidence of Lightning Lane usage and that it's doing really well, and the quarterly reports suggest that and so forth. But in fact, Lightning Lane usage is actually down. However, I'm sorry, Genie Plus sales are down, but Lightning Lane usage is up. And it was like, how is that at all possible? This was, I believe, episode 435 referencing this, and apparently it's because of DAS.
Yeah, we are seeing some indications that people might be abusing, and Vash, you told me not to abuse your source on this, so I won't. But maybe Disney also sees some problems there as well.
Wait a minute, though. Wait a minute. For the folks out there who don't know acronyms, gentlemen, what is DAS?
Oh man, I'm usually the one to do this to you, Pro. Please, what is DAS?
DAS is the Disability Access Program that was added after the GAC, which was the guest assistance card. Interestingly enough, which
of course we all know that all of us '90s kids know that GAC is actually a trademark of Nickelodeon.
Nice. Well, that was rife with abuse. Specifically, people they were selling their services, for example, and doing impromptu tours and so forth, and it really got very, very bad. So Disney completely reimagined the whole program, and that's where we have DAS, or the Disability Access Service specifically.
Right. So as we're seeing, Lightning Lane is becoming something that a lot of people are buying into Genie Plus. It hit its highest point, which was, I think, pretty close to $40.
Hold on, because there's something important here, and that is that we don't actually know how popular Genie Plus is, because we don't know what the capacity is.
Right.
And that needs to be put in quotes, because there's not a capacity in the traditional sense for a digital service. And that's what this is. There's a digital service. You get to skip the line, but in reality, you're skipping one line. You're being moved from one line to another, and there's no guarantee that that other line is any faster at all. Now, what is the capacity has to do with the threshold that Disney wants to handle in terms of how bad does it look for them to take your money and put you in a line that's no faster, right? How much can they do that? So the capacity, I think, is sort of a misnomer. And when we're looking at this, what we need to consider is that Disney, they can fluctuate this in many different ways.
Of course.
I would argue that in reality, number one, we don't know, how many people are buying Genie Plus. We do know that the cost that's being associated with Genie Plus, which is arbitrarily picked by Disney, we know it's arbitrarily because we've seen crowd levels be the same, and yet they'll have higher Genie Plus numbers. So they get to pick it according to whatever system they want to use.
Sure.
And we're not privy to that system. What I would say is that when it comes to Genie Plus and individual Lightning Lanes, that Disney has a real issue that they need to respond to fairly quickly.
Yes.
Because this will drop off a cliff the longer that people see tweets and see photos and images and videos and complaints of folks who are lined up at Tron and say, why? Why am I standing out in the middle of the sun in this stupid virtual queue, for a ride that you didn't build the entire line inside? And even the virtual queue doesn't get me inside. And I'm paying money for this stuff.
Right. And we've often said on this channel, and Vash, I want to get to you in just a second here. We've often said that you have to have a degree in Disney in order to enjoy the parks. And there are a lot of people who understand that. There are entire blogs that are dedicated specifically to how to maximize a Disney vacation. So
and the difference,
if people were prone to go to the parks without doing all of that research beforehand, they wouldn't be seeing all of that. And when when Genie Plus, thank you so much, Disney, for all the confusing nomenclature here. When Genie Plus started, it was $15 per ticket. Now it's close to $40 based off of the recent holiday spike that they put in. So it's getting to that point where people are going to consider whether or not they need to get it. It's still not enough that it competes with Universal, but that's a subject for another day.
And quickly, because I want to hear what Vash has to say, very quickly though, I would simply put forth that in the past, right, the complaint was that you needed to know so much about Disney because the Fast Pass system allowed people to manipulate and ride way more rides than people who didn't understand how it worked. Well, the difference in the past when we had Fast Pass and today is that if you didn't understand how the Disney parks worked, you still got to ride rides. Today, if you don't understand how the app on your phone works, you can't order food at the restaurants. It's insanity. I mean, take somebody who is not technologically savvy. Take a Luddite. Take your grandmother to the parks, and it's not a fun experience because they have to live on their phone, getting their reading glasses out rather than just going to the counter and saying, "I'd like a burger, please."
Yeah, it has become a very, very complex process, and there's no question. And unfortunately, Disney hasn't necessarily addressed those issues or concerns, or at least placed an emphasis on addressing those concerns. Unlike Universal, where they're pretty on top of it. Even their mobile ordering system is even far better. Well, for example, like Disney, you have to like find your table in advance, and you have to make your mobile order, and then you have to actually pick it up and do all that. I found at Universal, well, you just go to your table, you type in your table number, and that food is brought to you.
Yes,
relieving a lot of the hassle and making a service that people actually would want to opt into just for its convenience.
And so we're even looking at ways that they're going to make that more convenient over at Universal as well. We'll be talking about that more here on That Park Place. I think we will be talking about Lightning Lane and DAS and all of these things very much very soon here on That Park Place. Gentlemen, is this an issue that Disney needs to fix? Is this fine? Or is this something that can be easily remedied? What do you think? Vash, you first, then Pro.
This is something that definitely needs to be fixed. I believe the some of the recent guidance for shareholders, I think it was offered at some earnings calls actually, suggested that there was like 50% opt-in usage from guests at Walt Disney World on various quarters. That's way too high for a system like this. If everybody's special, no one is. I'll just put it simply as that. And so there's not enough capacity to go around, obviously, with the amount of attractions that are there. It just creates problems down the road. This, honestly, in my opinion, the price needs to be raised substantially, and the threshold needs to be reduced substantially. I think that's the
problem there, Vash, is that when you raise the price to the point that you lower the demand, the way you've done that is you have cut out the middle class. You've cut out the average family from being able to afford the service, and all of the elites then get to ride the rides while you stand and watch them. And that, once you've paid your money to cross those turnstiles, for decades, that meant that you were in there and you were just like everybody else, and you got to enjoy the Disney parks. That's the way they were designed. That's the way it's supposed to be. The problem is that the system is fundamentally flawed. They need to go back to a free fast pass system that makes you feel like you are welcomed and adored for having come to the parks, gives you overvalue for what you paid, and then they need to find another way to buoy their revenues, because this is not it. This was flawed from the beginning. There's no good solution to it. You are either going to move one line to another and penalize people for buying your product, or you're going to raise the price to the point that you price out the average folks, and now it's just a wealthy person's playground. That's the problem.
You're right. And I will say that right now the system that they have is you are making a bet against your fellow guests to say that it will be so crowded that you want to be the only one that gets in there. It's the prisoner's dilemma played out with theme park lines. And
it's also a worthless piece of product when the parks are not crowded. And that's no good either.
I just don't know if they're going away from it. They're just addicted to this cash. So at least if you limit how many people actually opt into the system, at least standbys move a little bit faster. But to your point,
you know how they could fix it real quick. Charge for extra magic hours. You had extra magic hours forever. Charge for them. Everybody loves the VIP events. Charge a lot. Let the people who have the cash, who want to go ride the rides, let them get in 2 hours early. Let them stay 2 hours late. I don't care. But if you cross those turnstiles, you deserve a fair shake at riding the rides that everybody else gets to.
I would agree with that. Now, of course, all of this was meant when Genie Plus came around. It was supposed to solve another problem where you had to have a degree in Disney. That was the Fast Pass Plus system. We won't get into the history of that, but at least it wasn't an extra charge.
My final point, Jonas, a little 5-year-old girl whose parents are extremely wealthy should get to ride the rides the same as the little girl whose parents spent every dollar they had to get there. And that little girl who doesn't come from great wealth or means, she should not sit there in Disney World and be reminded that this took everything her family had. They
Right.
don't need to have that conversation in line about why she doesn't get to ride as much. It's
And
not-
while
not fair.
while they're at it, they should put down the velvet ropes for the people who get fireworks seating. So,
There you
with
go.
that being said, thank you so much, everyone, for taking part in this conversation. That is a little uncomfortable for us as Disney fans. Usually, we like to talk mostly about positivity here. Like this video if you like this video. If you have thoughts on what we've said here today, please leave them in the comment section down below. If you know someone who might be interested in what we're talking about, please share out this video. If you're from Disney and you're watching this, just know that we actually do want you to improve your parks. We had a very positive video that we'll be putting out very soon about your recent pricing changes and offers there. So Disney, we want you to be fixed. We don't want to see you burn to the ground as much as we want to see the company that used to be there, that used to be every person in the United States' favorite theme park with good reason. We want to see that again. We want to see you be the center of the cultural zeitgeist that you used to be. Now, for everyone else, well, Disney, you too. Please subscribe to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.